I'm going to show you a live demo of how Databricks Genie empowers business users and data teams to talk to their data using simple natural language. I'm Dan Williams, I'm a Databricks Partner Solutions Architect Champion, and I lead the Databricks practice at Data Intellect. And today I'm going to walk you through a capital markets use case where Genie simplifies complex data analysis for both traders, analysts, and risk managers. Now, Databricks provides robust governance and security through Unity Catalog. It provides advanced analytics for a broad range of use cases, and it provides machine learning and AI development tools. Now, speaking of AI, Genie is one of the latest additions to the Databricks Intelligence Platform. Simply put, it's an assistant that lets users ask questions in natural language. Genie then answers by translating those questions into SQL queries and then returns both the result as a table and the SQL query behind it. It actually learns from the data and the metadata that's governed by Unity Catalog, meaning that it understands both the context and data relationships. And this brings me to Unity Catalog, which is the only open and unified governance solution for both data and AI. It manages structured and unstructured data, it manages functions and pretty much any data artifacts, and it governs data across any cloud platform. And this is the backbone of this AI capability because Unity Catalog has visibility over your whole data landscape. It truly democratizes data and AI in your organization. When we prepare a Genie space, we pick a focused set of tables from Unity Catalog. We provided them with instructions and comments and SQL examples, and then Genie can use that information to deliver answers with actual business context. And I'm going to show you a concept map of what Genie uses in order to learn. Essentially, Genie sits on top of your data. It understands schemas, it understands column descriptions, and it understands business logic. And it answers those questions without users needing to know SQL or the actual data relationships. In our scenario, we have 5 tables that include market data, trade executions data, news, quotes, and a reference table. And in this example, we have 5 days worth of synthetic data. Normally in a capital markets use case, right? This is captured in KDB+. So for granular time series data, KDB Plus is still the main record of truth because it captures every tick, every trade, and every order event with nanosecond precision. But with Databricks and subsequently with Genie, we can feed aggregated, or if you think about it from a medallion architecture perspective, we can actually feed it gold level tables or pretty much high value subsets of that data into the Databricks platform. There are many reasons why this is useful, but 2 of them are broader analytics or to combine this data with other unstructured sources like, for example, news or company filings. This data is then governed by Unity Catalog, and we can expose topic-related tables to Genie when we actually build out a Genie space. Let's walk through a live demo so we can test Databricks Genie. Let's dive into some questions. In our Databricks workspace, we can head over to Genie. And here, as you can see, I already have a Genie space created called Exploratory Data Analysis. Now on the left side, we have all our previous chats, and we can just start asking it questions. For example, we can have predefined questions like the one that you see here, show me the total volume traded over the last 30 days, or you can just have the default question, explain the dataset. This is the default question that whenever you create a Genie space, you will be prompted with. Now, in order to run any query to actually see the data behind it, you need to have a SQL warehouse enabled, okay? As you can see here, our SQL serverless starter warehouse is stopped. So we need to start this warehouse in order for Genie to actually see the data, okay? This data is governed by Unity Catalog, so we need a SQL warehouse enabled so that we can actually run these queries. Now, we can just start and just ask it to explain the data set. What tables are there and how are they connected? Give me a short summary. Now, Genie is going to see all of our 5 tables. As you can see, it already understands that these tables are connected primarily through the ticker or symbol columns, which represent the stock symbols or tickers. It saw all of these tables: executions, ticker news, quotes, reference data, and trades. Okay. We can also see our tables on the left side here. We can see all of the data that Genie has access to. So Genie actually realized that these tables are connected primarily through the ticker or symbol columns. So it understands the data relationships between them. The reason why it understands this is also because if you look at our catalog, we can, for example, just check the execution table. Here I already provided it with a description, and for each of these columns I already provided it with a description. For example, the execution price at which the trade was completed, or the size, the quantity that was traded, used to measure trade volume and liquidity. Okay, so I give it some context around what these columns are and what are they useful for. Now the next question that I'm going to ask it is to perform a simple aggregation. So show me the total volume traded over the last 5 days. The reason why I'm asking it over the last 5 days is because we only have 5 days worth of synthetic data. So Genie is going to show us the total volume traded over this period. Now this query calculates the total trading volume for the last 5 days. We can see the total volume and we can check the generated code to see whether this makes sense. So it's perfectly fine. It just summed up the total volume as total volume from the trades table. So we can see the sources that Genie tapped into, and we can also see the SQL query. We can also modify it if we wish, and we can always rerun it if, for example, Genie would have made a mistake. But in this scenario, Genie ran this query perfectly fine. Now let's build on this question by actually grouping on date and symbol. And let's see, for example, show me the total volume traded over the last 5 days per day and per instrument. So we actually build on top of this query. Let's see if Genie can actually answer this question. It's determining the relevant context, it's thinking. So now we should see the data being grouped by day and by symbol. This query provides the total trading volume for each stock symbol on a daily basis over the last 5 days. We have the date, we have the symbol, and we have the total volume per symbol. Let's see the actual SQL to see whether it makes sense. So again, it grouped by date and symbol, that's fine. And it calculated the sum of total volume as total volume. This query makes perfect sense as well. And we can see that it built upon our previous query. The whole point is to see a normal progression of what a normal trader would ask it, or a business user or a risk manager. Now the next question that we can ask it is a little bit more interesting. Okay, so we can ask it as per above, but for tech stocks. Now this question is very interesting because in the first place we have as per above, meaning that we're going to see if Genie actually understands the context, okay, of the previous question, and then we can see for tech stocks. Now we are using tech stocks. We're not using technology. So we're going to see whether Genie can understand that tech refers to technology. This report summarizes the total trading volume for technology sector stocks over the past 5 days. So it understood that tech stocks refer to the actual sector, and it went in the reference data and it got the sector from there. And the sources are trades aggregations and reference data. So we have only our technology stocks and the traded volume. Let's look at the generated code. And here again, we have the same calculation, that's fine. But this time it actually looked for tech in the reference data sector. How did it know that it needs to look at the sector? Well, for two reasons. First of all, as we see here in our catalog, if we go to our reference data tables, and if we look at our table, in our sector, the industry sector to which the company belongs to. Okay, so it understands, Genie understands what sector is, specifically because we added a lot of information in these comments. The next question that I'm going to ask it is as per above, but calculate the VWAP. We'll see if Genie understands what is the VWAP and how to calculate this metric. This analysis provides the total trading volume and the volume weighted average price. So it understands that VWAP is the volume weighted average price, and it also looks at technology stocks over the past 5 days. So it kept on building on top of that query. So how did it calculate the VWAP? Okay, because this is trades data. Now let's look at the generated code, and here we can see that it actually calculated the VWAP as the sum of trade val divided by the sum of total volume, right? So how did it calculate VWAP like that for market data? Well, in our instructions, I gave it an example of how to calculate the VWAP for Apple, for example, for a specific day. So I instructed Genie that these two are the columns that are relevant to calculate the daily VWAP from the trades aggregations table. Okay, so it now knows that for market data, it needs to run this type of calculation. So that's why Genie actually went ahead and understood from our example queries that this is the query to run. Also, I created a SQL function here, calculate VWAP, and if we check it, it actually shows how to calculate the VWAP by summing these two for the trades table. So now it could also access the VWAP function if it needs to. But in this scenario, Genie decided to just use the example that we gave it and calculated the VWAP from that example. Now we've seen how it calculates it for market data, so let's see how it calculates and adds in the VWAP that we achieved, okay? But who is we, okay? Let's see if it understands that it needs to look at the executions table because that data is our data, so therefore we want to calculate the VWAP for our executions. As you can see here, it actually looked at the executions compared to the trades data. So therefore it understood that it needs to look into that specific table. So we have our achieved VWAP, and if we look at our generated code, it summed the execution price and the execution size and divided it by the execution size as achieved VWAP. So it didn't use the previous function because of course in the executions table it didn't have those specific columns, but it understood how to calculate the VWAP for the executions table. And this is great because you can provide it with specific functions, right? You can provide it with specific instructions and example queries for your own particular data. So you can create your own custom functions specifically to calculate metrics for your own data depending on the business vertical that the Genie space is for. That's why Genie is so powerful, because it understands all the data relationships. It understands how to calculate various metrics because you already train it in your specific business jargon. For example, the reason why it knows that our data is executions data is because in our general instructions, I provided it here with an instruction. If the user specifies our data or we achieved or anything related to our and their ownership of the data, they refer to the executions data. The trade data is market data in that sense, and the executions data is our data. So you see all of this business logic, all of the business jargon and everything that is specific to your industry, you can just write it in plain natural language and add it as a general instruction, and Genie will use that information to make sense of the data and provide you with valid SQL queries. Now let's ask it another question. Now only show VWAP for our data and market data and then break it down by strategy. Let's see what Genie will provide us with, because strategy is a column in our executions table. Here, it looked at our executions table and our reference data, and we have the achieved VWAP by strategy, okay? So we can see that we have achieved VWAP as executions price multiplied by size divided by size, and it also grouped by strategy. So this is extremely powerful because this is the normal flow of what a normal business user would actually use Genie for. This last question was a final demonstration of how Genie can handle complex queries across multiple tables, all triggered by natural language. To sum this up, Unity Catalog ensures governance and context, allowing Genie to understand data relationships and business terms. Databricks Genie then lets us ask questions, and we can incrementally build queries and combine internal and external data in order to get deeper insights. I believe this approach truly democratizes data because business users can use it with almost no SQL knowledge, and also advanced users can still refine and customize queries. And they can also train Genie to provide better answers next time. In capital markets, this means faster decision making, more accessible analytics, and seamless integration of market data, of execution data, news, and pretty much any other data source.